mention it really.
Okay.
Krishna, Krishna.
Battery's charging up?
Yeah, the battery's up.
महाराज की
जय।
So all of us can please take our seats.
So, why don't you have everyone introduce themselves?
Yes, that's the first way to start with. So go with first with the host.
Yeah.
And the host is here, Viru Prabhu and Vani Mataji, and their daughter Meghna is here.
Hare Krishna.
They are so excited to host you, Maharaj, to have you over.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming, Prabhu.
I'm happy to come.
It's our honor to to bring you over here and then have this nice evening.
Thank you.
Krishna chanting and prayers.
Thank you.
Yes, very nice. Thank you.
And then anybody else I don't know?
Yeah. So the next is probably introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. My name is.
So one thing, just it happens that in Orlando we haven't been having any Maharajas come, so we all got used to the word Prabhus, right? So this is a Maharaj, yeah. So who is sannyasi, and we call the this is Maharaj. Nothing wrong, but we haven't been introduced. So hopefully Maharaj will come here more, so we get used to the word Maharaj.
Yeah.
So we can address as Maharaj, and then.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. My name is Shashi, and I'm associated with all these devotees.
Good.
It's 2-3 years now. She's my wife, Sonali.
Very nice.
Nice to see you here.
Nice to see you.
Then our wonderful friend.
Yeah, Prabhu, my name is Chandrasekhar.
Chandrasekhar.
My wife is Srilata.
Ah, very nice.
And then.
Oh, we have Lord Brahma here.
So one of our friends, Rasa Vigra Prabhu, is missing. He just came from India yesterday, so I'm thinking he's not feeling ready to come out right now. So these are the wonderful families, the group of devotees who are helping out a lot in terms of services, physically, financial help to temple a lot.
Very
I
nice.
really look forward to them to Oh, speak of the devotee, he's here. Rasa Vigra Prabhu is here.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
And we do monthly.
Quickly, we get
Monthly programs,
Yeah.
yeah.
quickly introduce yourself.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
My name is Rasa Vigra Das, and that's my wife, Tulsi Devidasi,
Very nice.
my daughter Vaishnavi and son.
Oh, those are nice names.
Sorry, we're late.
So as I was telling you, this is the RTP of Windermere here. All of them are IT business people
Good.
and wonderfully situated here. So most of our Bhakti Vriksha members are living in this area, this part of the town.
Mm.
So, and they help a lot in many different ways in our temple. So all of them are very, very happy that you have come here to the association.
Okay.
So
You-
have
You want to introduce me, like who I am, or?
Yes, I'll introduce Maharaj now. So first of all, me and Shraddhanjali are so happy, so overwhelmed that we have in this presence of His Holiness Vir Krishna Maharaj here. Vir Krishna Maharaj is one of the very senior disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and he has been practicing Krishna consciousness over 50 years now. And he will explain more about his journey through the beginning times and now in his 20s he accepted Srila Prabhupada as his guru, renouncing everything else. And I met personally Maharaj in Fiji. So from there he picked me up, gave me Krishna consciousness. And Shraddhanjali also knew him from over here,
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Since I came to USA, I know Maharaj.
Yeah.
That's the first sannyasi I know.
And actually Maharaj has been present in all our journeys, our engagement, and our marriage, and your initiation.
Yes, and
And-
marriage.
And I said my engagement and marriage. And when first time when I met Maharaj in Fiji, not first time, after some time, and this word came around that there's a girl in USA if you want to marry. So I thought, let me just ask Maharaj to make sure, That Maharaj, this girl Shraddhanjali, she's in North Carolina. I'm telling him all the details as if he doesn't know. So this girl and some devotees proposed about marriage, and Maharaj said one line which I still remember till this day. He said, Shraddhanjali is coming from a Brahminical family. And that's all he said. So I know what is it about, and I will not pass the time myself. So Maharaj has taken wonderful care. If I talk to myself about from the Fiji Yatra side, wonderful bringing up of all the devotees in Fiji. Since Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there before and after he left, and Maharaj kept a really wonderful close association of every devotee. And not only that, all over the world Maharaj is going. I don't know how he does it. Every place he goes, wherever he arrives, next day he's doing Mangalati and then different temples like Prabhupada will be doing so. Sending in Fiji he used to do that. So, and his classes are so amazing. One thing, telling you, all you guys would love to hear this, Maharaj is very wonderful with kids. And he already has I was a kid, but wonderful disciples who are up to the age of 10 or 11 now, or 13, taking second initiation, Brahman initiation too. So Maharaj is very good with kids, and we have a family here with kids. It will be very easy to have them introduced to Maharaj and get more inspired in becoming a devotee in Krishna consciousness. So again, Maharaj, thank you so much for coming over here.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Sure.
So maybe we should chant a little verse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, hopefully.
And quickly introduce Maharaj's wonderful disciple Mayapur Chandra and Falguni Radhika.
Falguni Radhika.
Radhika. So thank you also for being with us today.
Right.
Did I miss anyone? Everybody introduced? Okay, good. Yeah.
Turn this around.
Well, no, you just, oh, well, you just have it face me. No, it doesn't work that way. All right, just put it in front of me. I'll do it. I just have to tune this since this was just in the car.
Sure.
Give me 1 second.
You want to play the drum?
Yeah, why don't you play the drum? All right.
Feel free to record Maharaj singing.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the internet, so nothing's secret.
In the meantime, also you can give us some questions that you have to ask Maharaj if you want to ask some questions.
Everybody knows Prabhupada's pranam prayers too, like the Om Krishna Padaya Krishna. Okay, we'll start with that. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tina Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tina Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Pracharani Seksha Sundari Paschachare Zatare Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Pracharani Visesha Shunyavadi Paschachare Zatare Jai Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. nice. Nice
Yeah.
like Krishna's name, I like that. Okay. So what song should we sing now? Oh, the Hanuman song.
Yes.
I'm sure you all like that. You all know about Hanuman, right? So we have this song. I didn't exactly write it, but I wrote the music to it. And it goes like this. It's just Hanuman, oh Hanuman, oh Hanuman, oh Hanuman. You repeat. Of course, we're going to try to do that. And then Raghupati, Raghava, Raja, Ram, Patita, Pavana, Sita Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, like this. And then, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram. And then Hanuman, Hanuman. Okay. It's a fun song. Hanuman, All right. You all right? Okay, just one more soft song. Okay. Radhe Radhe Govinda. Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda sing a little Krishna Katha. What I like to do is if anyone has any questions, any points they'd like to hear about Krishna or Krishna Katha or Prabhupada or the Bhagavad Gita, just give me a topic and I'll talk about it. Does anyone have any questions, topics you'd like to hear about?
Maybe about Radharani.
What?
Radharani.
Radharani, that's a very elevated subject matter. Radharani, well, tomorrow night we're going to be speaking about Radharani. So we'll leave that for tomorrow night. It's a very elevated subject matter. We can start with just a little introduction, like there's a verse, Parasya Shakti Rudaiva Shriyate Shwabhavaki Jnana Bala Kriyacha, that Krishna has many different energies. And of course, the original energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as the Adi Shakti, the original Shakti, potency of the Lord. Krishna is Shakti Mam, which means he's the possessor of Shaktis, and the Shakti means the energy. So sometimes in India you find people who are worshipping the Shaktis, or the energies, instead of the energetic. So I think it's better to worship the energetic. So, these energies, of course, headed up by Srimati Radharani and all of her expansions, and there's various expansions of Srimati Radharani. Of course, we have Srimati Radharani and then the Astasakis, the 8 principal gopis that surround Radha and Krishna. And then after that you have the other gopis, and after that you have the wives of Krishna in Dwarka. An interesting thing is when Krishna's in Dwarka, and he's with his wives, 16,108 wives. That's a lot of wives. Does anyone have that many wives? No? So anyways, I won't tell you, there's a Western story called The 1001 Arabian Nights about a guy who tried to have a lot of wives, but he killed each wife. Does anyone know that story? No one's heard of that story. Anyway, he killed each wife after getting married to them. That's not a good way. So Krishna didn't do that. Krishna kept them all in separate houses, palaces, and like that. So anyway, so he had 16,108 wives, and those 108 wives were expansions of the gopis in Vrindavan. And so whenever Krishna was with his wives in Dwarka, they reminded him of his girlfriends in Vrindavan. This interesting interlude in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami, where Satyabhama, who is actually one of Krishna's wives, and she's the type of wife that's unsubmissive. Actually, Prabhupada says there's 2 types of wives that people have. One is submissive and the other one is unsubmissive. And Radharani is, of course, she's a girlfriend, but anyway. When we talk about girlfriends, it's not like the girlfriends of this world. Prabhupada said something very uncomplimentary about girlfriends in this world, which I'm not going to repeat right now because it may upset people. But in the spiritual world, which is the original source of this material world, and this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So anyway, in the spiritual world, everything is pure, proper, wonderful, ecstatic, and there's no inebrities, but in this material world, relationships are based upon I scratch your back, you scratch my back. In other words, it's like a business exchange. Things, especially in Kali Yuga, it's based upon whether it's a friendship, relationship, or what's that?
I was going to ask if you want a pillow or something.
No, I'm fine. If I wanted to, I'll sit back like this. I'm fine now. So, whether you have a friendship relationship, or a conjugal relationship, or whatever relationship, it's pretty much, the apple's going to fall off the end of the table. Are you watching me on the...
Just turn it on.
Well, you have to watch me on the phone at the same time. I'm here in real life. So, that's actually kind of funny. So, whether it's a friendship or a parental relationship or conjugal relationship, there's always a tinge of, what I can get from you. But in the spiritual relationships with Krishna, everyone is just thinking of pleasing Krishna. So that when you talk about boyfriends or girlfriends are not the same as boyfriends and girlfriends and things that's going on in America and also in India at this particular point. One pillow's enough. Otherwise, I'll go to sleep.
Under the control.
All right. That's all right. Oh my God. Okay. So anyway, so when Krishna is with his wives of Dwarka, because his wives are expansions of the gopis, and especially you have Satyabhama, who's an expansion of Radharani, and Rukmini, who is an expansion of Chandravali, Krishna remembers his girlfriends. And sometimes Krishna remembers his girlfriends so much that in the middle of the night, while he's resting next to his wife, he's calling out the names of his girlfriends. And this is really upsetting for his wives. I mean, you can imagine how upsetting it would be in this world. The man is just saying, Priya, or whatever. Whatever names are there. So, Rani. Rani. It's interesting, actually, that's a name. Sometimes the husbands call their wives Rani, which means queen. And the husband's name is Raja or Pati. So, anyway, this little humor here. So, Krishna is crying out the names of his girlfriends, and his wife, like Satyabhama, is getting really upset and really angry at the whole thing. And the story is told in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. But actually, every Shakti is an expansion originally from Srimati Radharani. And the interesting thing, we were talking about this in the class on the way over here, because we have to give a class at 5 o'clock on the internet every day, that all these different energies, of course, beginning with Srimati Radharani, are first-class servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada describes a first-class servant as one who does what the master wants even without being asked. That's pretty good, isn't it? It's like, has anyone ever seen that thing, Aladdin's lamp? Some of the children must have seen that, no? Nobody knows about these things. Aladdin and his lamp,
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've seen that? Okay, good. At least I know I'm with friends here. So anyway, so Aladdin, Aladdin would rub the lamp and the genie would come out and say, "Your wish is my desire, master." Of course, I think the genie was supposed to kill Aladdin at this particular point after he finished his third wish or something like that. I don't remember the story. So anyway, so we would all like to be in a situation like that our wish comes true. And even in America, the materialistic people came up with this whole philosophy called The Secret. Anyone heard of that before? No. Where they thought that if you really wish something hard enough, you'll get it. And in the movie, they made a movie of this particular nonsense philosophy. They showed someone who really wanted a bicycle, and he just was meditating on the bicycle. Of course, it's not something you really want to meditate on. So he was meditating on a bicycle, and he woke up the next morning, he had this super bicycle. Another guy was meditating on a sports car, and he woke up, somehow they got the sports car. Actually, that happened to me when I was young. I asked my father for a sports car, and the next morning there was a sports car there. It's not exactly due to the universe being my servant. It was due to my father being my servant. It's a little bit different. Not the Supreme Father, the intermediate Father. Anyway, so people have this conception and imitation of the Lord that if you want something enough, you'll get it. And that's not true. Maybe halfway true, because if you have good karma, enough good karma, then you may get something as material as you like. So, but it's not absolutely true. Absolutely would mean that it doesn't depend on any other circumstance. If you want it, you'll get it. So you have to have good karma to get something that you want. So, but Krishna doesn't have karma. Krishna's not under the law of karma, he's not under the time factor, he's the cause of all causes, sarva karana karnam. So when he wants something, because his energies are first-class servants, he gets it. And we were reading today in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing during the Rath Yatra ceremony. And he really wasn't aware that he was God, but one of the Shaktis called the Leela Shakti, remember this, I was reading, carried out everything according to his desire. So in other words, he didn't have to tell her, please arrange for this to happen, please arrange for that, for that devotee to dance, please arrange for a nice mridanga. Like I come here, I have to tune my guitar, please arrange for the guitar, please arrange for the instrument, everything like that. So he didn't have to arrange for anything because that Leela Shakti, and Leela Shakti is an expansion of Radharani, it's like Yogamaya, that Leela Shakti is actually Krishna's first-class servant. So she just arranges everything, and all of Krishna, even Maya Shakti, the Mahamaya, she arranges everything according to Krishna's desire. That's why we say in this material world that not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because everything here is happening according to the Lord's plan. Now the Lord is not directly manipulating everything here in this world. He's assigned his energies to do that, because Krishna, he's in Goloka Vrindavan, Goloka Epinivashikti, Akila Mahuta, according to the Brahma Samhita. He's in Goloka Vrindavan, and he's enjoying. So he's not doing the work of Lord Brahma or Maya or anything like that. He has people to do the work for him. Just like Srila Prabhupada one time was driving by the Ford Motor Company with one of his disciples, who happened to be the great-grandson of Henry Ford, Albert Ford, who later became Ambarish. And as they were driving by one of the big factories, one of the devotees asked Ambarish, is this where you work? And Prabhupada said, no, he's the proprietor. In other words, he owns all the stock, he doesn't work. He doesn't work manufacturing automobiles. Of course, sometimes you do find the proprietor in this world manufacturing, like Elon Musk, right? He stays in his factory and he helps manufacture, but he's an exception, and he's the best car manufacturer in the three worlds. But anyway, that's another subject matter. So, but Prabhupada said because he's the proprietor, he doesn't have to work. The tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, as described, Krishna doesn't have any work to do. So therefore his energies, which are first-class servants, just do it for him. He just relaxes like that. Of course, when he comes down to this earth planet and executes specific pastimes, it appears like he's working for the purpose of what? Yet, Yam Bapis, no. He comes down, Yadyata Charity Shreshtas Tatai Veita Janahat, to set a good example for us. Like Krishna acts as a perfect king, or Lord Ram acts as a perfect king. Of course, many of the things Krishna does are really horrible examples, like the things he does in Vrindavan, stealing butter, feeding it to monkeys, pinching little babies. Can you imagine if someone here went around pinching other people's babies? They'd probably call child protection services on them. Is it someone came to your home and started pinching your baby? You wouldn't let them in your home anymore. Krishna pinches babies, he passes urine on the floor of the different houses, steals the butter, runs away with their wives. So in many ways, Krishna and Vrindavan, bad example. Krishna and Dwarka is good example. So in Vrindavan, Krishna is himself. He sort of lets his hair down and becomes, what he really wants to do in Vrindavan. So, anyway, so talking about Krishna's energies. So they serve him in this way, and Radharani is the topmost. And so we can learn from that. The comparison I was making before was that if we want to be Krishna conscious, we have to become first-class servants of Krishna too. Not second or third or 10th class, and I'll describe what that is. Second class is someone who does what Krishna wants, which is good, But that person has to be told, would you please do it? Okay, yes, sir. And the third class servant does what Krishna or the master wants, and he's told, but he's not happy about it. He's begrudging. He's thinking, why am I asked to do this? I'd much rather eat prasadam than do arti. I'd much rather eat prasadam than whatever. And a 10th class servant, well, you can guess what that is. And someone who doesn't do anything. He just sleeps all day long and eats prasadam. Well, at least he eats prasadam. That's one good thing about a 10th class servant. So, Krishna consciousness means to become a first class servant of Krishna. And that's really what we could learn about Srimati Radharani. Really, that's what I wanted to talk about tomorrow night, how Radharani is Krishna's first class servant. She's ready to do anything and everything. And you know that story that Krishna had a headache, and the only thing that could cure Krishna's headache was the dust from his devotees' feet, and none of the devotees wanted to give the dust from their feet. I don't know if I could do that. I was just thinking, oh my God, I got to hell by giving the dust from my feet. But when the gopis were approached and Srimati Radharani were approached, she said, sure, take the dust from my feet. And Narada Muni said, aren't you worried about going to hell? And she said, I don't care. Let me go to hell, but I want Krishna's headache to be relieved. So that's really love. That's complete devotion and complete love, which is very hard to find, except in relationship to Krishna and his pure devotees. And so to me, that's Srimati Radharani, that complete, what we call Atmanivedam, complete surrender, and which is characterized by the last verse of the Shikshashka verses. They're given to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I hope that answers the question about Radharani. And, tomorrow we can speak a little bit more, and I'm not really going to get into telling so many stories about Radharani because I think it's a very elevated subject matter. And, it's said that one doesn't show one's beads or Ishtadeva in public, so it's just, I don't know. It's just like if someone asks you to tell you about, let's say if you're married and they want to find out about your wife or about your husband, you're not going to really tell people in general about it. I mean, just let's say they ask the President of the United States, who right now he seems to be a pretty good guy, so about his the deep relationship with his wife. I don't think he's going to really do that with a press conference or something like that. So I think with Srimati Radharani, of course there's all these stories written by the acharyas and everything like that, but it's important to keep a reverent attitude towards her, because we are serving under her jurisdiction, and we want her mercy. That's why the residents of Vrindavan, they're always chanting Radhe, 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 because she's the compassionate nature of the Absolute. She's the personification of compassionate nature. Krishna is compassionate, but to a point. But Radharani is unlimitedly compassionate. Because Krishna says, surrender unto me, give up all varieties of religiosity. We don't find Radharani saying that. Radharani is showing her mood through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates break open the storehouse of love of God, and they don't find anyone else to pay the price, and so they distribute it freely. That's pretty remarkable, isn't it? It's the greatest thing. Does anyone want to buy it? No. So here you can have it for free. And that's Lord Chaitanya. Dinahini yata chilo harinamu durilo. So I think we can best understand Radharani's mercy by observing the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna in the mood of Radharani, but exhibits this topmost compassion. Hey Krishna Karana Sindhu. the wall Mahadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gurvita Namaha, isn't it? And Lord Chaitanya's devotees are very compassionate too. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvyevacha patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So anyway, we're surrounded by an ocean of compassion, and tomorrow we can pray to Radharani to let us approach Krishna, like they say in Braj sometimes. Radhe Radhe Shame Radhe. You know, give me Krishna, you know. So that's the, and also when we chant the holy name, Hare Krishna, we are chanting, we are crying out to Radharani. Evocative. Evocative means to cry out. So all the names in the Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna, and the Rama, they're all in evocative form. That means the crying out form, not the nominative form. Nominative means the name. Like in Bhagavatam, you have Krishna. When Krishna describes the source of all incarnations, you have the verse, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. That's nominative. That Krishna is the source. He's Bhagavan Swayam, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when we say Krishna, that's crying out, oh Krishna, and then Hare, oh Radharani, or Radhe, same thing. Oh, Radhe, Radhe. So it's like crying out. It's not just a name, it's crying out for the person. And the name Radha, or Radhe, is non-different than Srimati Radharani, like the name Krishna is non-different from Krishna, right? Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddha Nechinmukto Pinitwa Namanamino. So that's a good question. So, who else has a question? Yes, Guni.
I was thinking about what you were saying in relation to Radharani's giving her foot dust to Krishna
Yeah.
to alleviate his headache, and how so many didn't want to because they didn't want to go to hell. But I was also thinking, I'm sure for plenty of people, if they went and asked, like, take your foot dust, they would say, yeah, sure, no problem. But because there's no realization of hell, or there's a disconnect of what that actually means, and the power of having that realization and still making that decision anyway.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because if you went to someone in America and say, I have a headache, I need your foot dust, they say, sure. He said, God wants your foot dust. Okay, no problem. He can have my shoes too. That's true. Actually, that's a good point. Because these personalities who were approached for the foot dust actually had full realization of what hell meant. And hell isn't something... So, I mean, we can read the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not Disneyland. It's like, well, when we were young, we used to go to these amusement parks, and Disneyland too, and they had these horror rides, you know, haunted house rides, and you go on them, and I was scared stiff, little kid, you know. That was my enjoyment, to be scared. So that you have these ghosts that jump out at you, or skeletons that jump out at you, and I'd be shivering and everything like that. So that's not even 1/1000th compared to what hell actually is. And in the Bhagavatam, you have all these interesting, you know, terrible tortures, where the living entity is put through a sugarcane press again and again in his subtle body, or thrown off a hill and has to walk up the hill again, having all of his bones broken, or having to embrace a red-hot form of his girlfriend or something like that. I mean, it's really heavy stuff. It's really heavy, and it's like... Prabhupada one time was asked, do you believe in hell? And Prabhupada said, London is hell one time. I mean, Prabhupada was just being funny at that point, but there are pretty hellish circumstances. Sometimes you read the news about people in Afghanistan, for example, right now, and that's pretty hellish. I mean, here, we tend to forget how hellish this world is. You know, we're in America and everything is pretty much insulated. We're insulated from the miseries. You know, maybe you go to a hospital and you see someone, but you just walk out of the hospital and everything's all right. But it's pretty intense in this world, and then hell is even billions and trillions of times more intense. So yes, that's a good point, that they actually have a realization of it. It's not just like a casual thing. It's like Vasudeva Dutt. He was willing to suffer forever in this material world so that people could be saved. Now, you just ask anyone, would you like to stay in this material world and enjoy? They would say yes.
One of the things I was wondering is, to what degree, for the benefit of our spiritual life, are these different types, like how, basically, essentially, how does this process of realization happen so that you have an actual deep understanding of what it is that you're doing and why, so that your service becomes deep and not superficial?
Wow. That's an interesting question. How would you step out of the ritualistic, action-only framework and actually connect to the purpose of what you're doing while you're doing it? How do you do that? What is the process to do that? I think it's a constant, well, first of all, we have to have good sadhana to be able to do that and hear regularly from Srila Prabhupada, from the acharyas. They keep ourselves reminded of why we're doing what we're doing. If we don't hear regularly, then everything becomes dry. That's one thing. And then make a conscious effort to try to ask ourselves why we're doing what we're doing while we're doing what we're doing. And it takes a lot of effort because we have a natural tendency to go on what I call automatic pilot. Even when we drive a car, we do that. You drive a car and then, I don't know if you ever experienced you're driving a car in just a regular route that you take every day, and all of a sudden you're home and you didn't realize how you got home. How did I get home? You realize, did I drive? Because you're just like on automatic pilot. It may work. Driving a car may work if you have a Tesla too, but that's not how you're supposed to do Krishna consciousness. There's a description by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Upadeshamrita about certain things that cause us to deviate from Krishna consciousness. And those things, one of the things is niyam agraha. Niyam agraha means doing things without consciousness of why you're doing what you're doing in Krishna consciousness, just ritualistic chanting. And of course that's one of the offenses on chanting too, that considering the chanting of the holy name is one of the rituals found in the Vedic literatures, like karma kanja rituals, or considering devotional service to be like that too. So it requires constantly pulling the mind back and having some, I call it a sankalpa. Sankalpa basically means an intention of work, some focus of work. To really define that Sanskrit word. To focus of why you're doing a particular type of work. For example, if you're performing a fire sacrifice, a yajna, then before the yajna or fire sacrifice, you're going to recite a sankalpa, which is basically on this particular day of the moon, this particular day of the month, we are getting this couple married at a certain time, astrological, etc. Like that's called a sankalpa. So we should always have these sankalpas fixed in our mind as far as our activities during the day. Even our ordinary, what we might consider to be mundane activities, we should be understanding why we're doing those activities, and then the activities become blissful. Even if we do something that's apparently not connected to Krishna, we can connect it to Krishna. For example, let's say some of the young people here are going to school, and you're thinking, and you're learning about geography, let's say geography, and you're learning about Columbus. Anyone's heard of Columbus before? Yeah, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. It's a nice poem. No? Yes, nice poem. So you're learning about it and you're thinking, what is this connected? You know, this is boring. It is boring. But this is this is boring, you know, and then you got to learn so many dates. I remember going to school and learning all these dates. All these different people did things in World War II, World War III. No, there wasn't World War III, don't worry. So, I want to see if you're listening. That was a trick. So, you're learning all these dates, and it's just like, I can't take it anymore. But then if you have a purpose in life, if your purpose is, let's say, to be Krishna conscious, I'm getting educated so I can actually serve Krishna nicely when I grow up, then it actually becomes very ecstatic. Otherwise, it's very dry. One thing we often find with people who join Krishna consciousness at a young age, they want to drop all their studies or something like that. And they say, you know, what's the use of all this? I just want to chant Hare Krishna. But if you explain to them how by doing all this they'll be better able to serve Krishna, they can see this as service to Krishna. It's like someone who runs a marathon or, you know, in the Olympics or something like that. You got to do the training. You can't just show up for the Olympics. Can you imagine like let's say a runner who shows up for the Olympics and hasn't done any training or anything like that? Oh my God, he wouldn't even get off the start line there. So you got to practice. So the practice, you know, why does someone who is competing in the Olympics, practicing for 5 hours a day, you know, running, which is actually a little boring, and pushing himself to the max, because he has the goal in mind. So if you have the goal in mind of serving Krishna, you can connect so many things to that goal, and then it becomes devotional. Your going to school becomes devotional. Your learning things becomes devotional. It just, everything becomes Vishram Purna Shukayate. Everything becomes happy or blissful at that point. But it requires hearing about Krishna regularly, number one, and secondly, reminding yourself continually why you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just, life is just dull and boring at that particular point. You have to think, why am I doing this? So, control the mind. So, good question. So, who else has a question here? Yes?
What was Prabhupada's hobbies?
What was Prabhupada's hobby? Wow. You asked me nice questions yesterday about Prabhupada, too. About when I met Prabhupada. So Prabhupada's hobby, when Prabhupada was young, Prabhupada liked to shoot water pistols. His father only gave him one. And then Prabhupada said he wanted another one for his other hand. And his father said, no, one is enough. And Prabhupada threw a fit until his father gave a second one. And then Prabhupada even described he had a scar from that, throwing a fit. But that was something Prabhupada did, you know, because when one is young, one can actually... Anyway, at every age, one should do things for fun, too. It's not that a devotee is just like a dried-up old prune. You know, a real devotee is always youthful. Like Prabhupada, he was always very, not always, but I mean, he had this playful aspect to him, like a little kid sometimes. Like there was one of his servants who was arguing with Prabhupada about, you know, going to the moon, you know, whether they went to the moon or not. Anyway, so what happened is that this servant went into the kitchen to cook something for Prabhupada, and there was a little explosion, and the servant got some soot all over his face. So he comes up to see Prabhupada, and the devotees are saying, what happened to you? And Prabhupada said, he went to the moon. So Prabhupada had a real sense of humor. And another time Prabhupada was, when I was I wasn't with him at that time, but another time I was with Prabhupada, and there was a lady who was interviewing Prabhupada, And she had at that time something called a mini skirt, which means like, anyway, you can imagine what it was. And she asked Prabhupada the question, why do you have shaved heads? And Prabhupada said, it's better to have a cool head and warm legs. So, Prabhupada, he has some really good jokes. Or another time, this devotee here, Prabhupada, his father was Prabhupada's servant, Shrutikirti. And Prabhupada kept looking at his servant's feet. And Shrutikirti, the servant, was thinking, why is Prabhupada always looking at my feet? And Prabhupada said to him, he said, your mother must have been very beautiful. And the servant said, why do you say that? And Prabhupada said, because your feet are very nice, therefore your mother must be beautiful. It is said that if you have nice looking feet. That doesn't mean everybody should look at their feet and then say, oh, my mother couldn't be that bad. So Prabhupada had a sense of humor. But as far as his hobby, okay. His hobby was worshiping Lord Jagannath. And Prabhupada, from a very early age, wanted to conduct a ceremony called Rath Yatra. You've heard of Rath Yatra before? That's where they have these carts. Maybe you've seen pictures of it, where they have these carts and they put these deities, Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. The deities with big eyes on them. They look at you and they smile. So that's Baladev, Subhadra, and Jagannath. So they have this festival in a place called Jagannath Puri in India, where these carts are so big, they're taller than this house, probably twice as tall as this house. And they pull the carts down the road, 3 carts down the road. And Prabhupada wanted to have his own festival. So Prabhupada begged his father, this was Prabhupada's hobby, Prabhupada begged his father, please get me some carts. And his father didn't have much money to buy him some carts. Not big carts as big as a house, right? He just wanted toy carts. And then he started crying. And then there was an old lady. And she said, why are you crying, little boy? And the father explained, Guru Mohandev, he explained that he's crying because he wanted a Rath Yatra cart. And the lady said, oh, I got an old one, he just needs to fix it up. So Krishna arranged for that. And so then he fixed up this cart and had little horses on, little horses about this big, painted horses, wooden horses on it, like the genuine Rath Yatra cart. And Prabhupada, as his hobby, conducted the Rath Yatra through the streets, certain streets of Calcutta. And he had his parents and the parents of his friends cook food, prasadam, to distribute to everybody along the route. And that was Prabhupada's hobby. It's a nice hobby, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice hobby. So, you want to ask me what my hobby is?
Yeah.
Okay, I figured. My hobby is I like to play the guitar. Okay? I'm not going to mention cars. But anyway, so I like to play the guitar. That's my hobby. For Krishna. I don't sing normal love songs. I'll tell you a story about someone who was singing normal love songs. His name was Upabharya. And he was up in the heavenly planets, higher planets, like with the demigods, and he was singing just normal Bollywood songs that he learned from watching Bollywood movies or whatever. But he was singing, but he was singing just like love songs, which are like Bollywood songs. And the demigods, they weren't happy with that because they were trying to have a kirtan mela. And they cursed him. You should take birth as a Shudra on this earth planet because you are chanting Bollywood songs. Seems like you use the word Bollywood, but you are chanting mundane love songs when you should be chanting and glorifying Krishna. And so he took birth on this earth planet and became who? Does anyone know the story? Who's anyone else? I know you know the story. He became Narada Muni in his next life. He was born in a Shudra family, and being cursed by demigods or great personalities, you always get some blessing at the same time. Like that story of Manigriva and Nalakuvara, who were cursed by Narada Muni, and eventually they saw Krishna after being trees for 100 years of the demigods. So he took birth in a Shudra family. He didn't even know who his father was. But during the 4 months of the rainy season, he had the association with great bhakti vedantas, I mean, great pure devotees of the Lord. And he took initiation, and as a result, later on, well, first something unfortunate happened, but it was actually for his benefit. His mother, who was his only source of sustenance, passed away. And then he started wandering throughout the whole world and became absorbed in Krishna. And saw Krishna at one particular juncture. Krishna said, you only see me once in this lifetime, but after that lifetime, he appeared as Narada Muni, and now he has the benediction to travel to all the planets, any planet he wants, using his, not guitar, using his veena. Narada Muni, Bhajavina, Radhika Ramana Namane. It's a nice story, isn't it? That's Narada Muni, because he was singing the wrong songs, but by Krishna's mercy and the mercy of the pure devotees, he actually came to the right position. Thank you. You asked nice questions. Wow, intelligent. Yeah.
First question. How did Kalia ended up in Fiji, if that's the real?
How did Kalia? Okay, Kalia end up in Fiji. Kalia, he started in Fiji. He didn't. He not only ended up, he started in Fiji, but he had a problem. Did you ever see Sesame Street with Big Bird? That big bird was Garuda, the bird carrier of the Lord. So what was his problem? I'll tell you what his problem was. That Garuda used to come there. There used to be a lot of snakes there in Fiji. So Garuda used to come there, and he would really harass all the snakes because, that's his prasadam. Different living entities have a different food allotted to them. I mean, for a tiger to eat meat, that's fine. For us, it's not fine, because every living entity has his own food. Like if you ever had, we know some people have cats. You can't feed a cat vegetarian food because the cat will die on vegetarian food. Dogs, they can eat vegetarian food. Anyway, so his food was snakes. There's a whole story in the Mahabharata why that's so. Because his half-brothers were the snakes, the sons of Kadru, and he got the benediction he could eat his half-brothers. Don't do that at home. That's quite dangerous. So anyway, so he was feasting all these snakes. He would just eat any snake he wanted. So the snakes actually made a deal with him, with Garuda. We're going to give you one every day or one a week or whatever it was. Just one. You're not going to just harass us all. It's got to have a little peace. It's almost like that story in Eka Chakra, how they were actually offering one family to Bakasura, one person for a family every month. So Garuda was happy with that, but Kalia, he was so bad that he was also eating snakes, and he was a snake, and he was eating other snakes. You see that sometimes, actually, with snakes, even in this world. They actually eat other snakes. Sometimes I've even heard the snakes eat their youth, their young, or something like that. There's some stories like that among certain species. So anyway, so Garuda got really angry with him and started attacking him. And so he thought, this is too much for me, because Garuda is the bird carrier of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And no one can defeat Garuda. No one. Even when, there's so many stories about Garuda. So Indra tried to defeat him one time by throwing his thunderbolt, and then Garuda just dropped one feather, and that was it, And he defeated Indra. So what happened is that Kaliya thought, I got to go somewhere where Garuda can't go. He's thinking about it, where can Garuda go? Let me think about it. So then he went to a place in the Yamuna where this great sage, Shobhari Muni, was. Now, Shobhari Muni, he was such a great sage, he was meditating under the water. Didn't need an aqualung, breathing apparatus or anything like that, but he could just stay under the water without breathing. Pretty good sage. And this sage, his friends were the fish. You got to have friends, and if you're living in the water, then you don't have much choice, do you? So he considered himself the god of the fish, or the protector of the fish. So many years before Kaliya went to the Yamuna lake, Garuda was actually eating fish from the same place. And Shobhari Muni got so upset that all of his friends were being eaten that he cursed Garuda that if you ever come here again, you'll die. So Garuda, of course, he doesn't have to listen to curses, but he thought, let me respect this sage, the guy's agitated. So let me just go away. So Garuda went away, and therefore that place was safe for Kaliya to come because Garuda wouldn't come there. So Kaliya goes there to this lake in the Yamuna River, and he's having a good old time, He has a few wives too. They call it Kaliya Nags, Kaliya Patnis, Nagapatnis. The Nagapatnis. So they're there, they're enjoying, they're all the Nagapatni kids, there. But the problem is that Kaliya, he's a poisonous snake. And so when he breathes or does whatever he does, it creates poison all around. So the living entities were dying all over the place. And one time Krishna's coward boys came near and, they had trouble too. And Krishna revived them. And Krishna thought, I got to do something about this snake that's causing poison in the Yamuna River. So Krishna climbed up on a tree. There was only one tree that was actually still alive because previously Garuda had put some nectar on that tree. And there's also, some acharyas say that it's because Krishna touched the tree with his feet. Anyway, whatever. The tree was still alive, and Krishna jumped off the tree, jumped into the river, and he went down to fight with the Kaliya serpent. And the Kaliya serpent got really angry and actually held Krishna for hours in his coils. I think it was 3 or 4 hours he held Krishna in his coils, and snake coils. And Kali had so many heads too. And so Krishna was just playing with him. In the meantime, the residents of Vrindavan, they ran to the lake where Krishna and Kali were, and they were really upset. Yashoda was getting ready to jump in. Balaram knew exactly what was happening. He didn't have any fear. He held everybody back. And Balaram basically said, these are your associates who love you very much. They're going to die. Krishna, do something. So Krishna just got out of there, and he stretched himself, and he started dancing on the heads of the Kaliya serpent. And the Kaliya serpent tried to bite him and tried to entangle him again. And Krishna just kept doing like a rasa dance on the heads of the Kaliya serpent. And then eventually the Kaliya serpents started to vomit just blood and everything like that. And he just became unconscious. And the Kaliya serpent's wives, Nagapatnis, came out and they begged that their husband could be forgiven. And they were great devotees. And Krishna forgave the Kaliya serpent. And then Krishna left his footprints on the heads of the Kaliya serpent so that Garuda would no longer attack the Kaliya serpent. And so Krishna said, get out of here, go somewhere where it's safe. And the Kaliya serpent decided, I want to go to Fiji. There's no COVID there now, so they're not in lockdown. So he swam with his wives and children to Fiji. And some people say that he's still there. There are stories that when the devotees first went to Fiji and they showed some of the natives pictures of the Kali serpent from Prabhupada's books, the natives actually recognized the pictures. And they said, "Oh, that's our deity." Was it called Dengi or something like that? Dengu?
Takuwanga.
What?
Takuwanga.
Takuwanga. Anyway, and he's supposed to be in a place called Reiki, right?
Yes, I'm not sure myself.
You're not sure? You haven't seen him?
I wasn't sure. Yeah.
He's supposed to be. There's a place in Fiji called Reiki. And a mountain cave that connects to the mountain, and he's supposed to be there. And so, anyway, so Prabhupada said he went to Fiji. And so when Prabhupada went to Fiji, Prabhupada instructed the devotees to make a deity of Kaliya, but also Krishna dancing on the top of Kaliya. So in our main temple, I wouldn't say the main temple now, but the first temple that Prabhupada established in Fiji, there's a deity of Krishna dancing on the head of the Kali serpent, and also of the wives of the Kali serpent, Nagapatnis, 4 of them surrounding the deity of Kaliya. It's interesting story. Good question. So that's why he went to Fiji, because that was his original home, and also he's protected from Garuda, and that's also why in Fiji there's no snakes.
Yeah.
Kali ate them all. And that's why the devotees are protected in Fiji. There's an interesting story that one time some really bad boys, they came and attacked one of our temples there, the Kaliya temple actually, and they threw some fire bombs into the temple, to set the temple on fire. So the temple, they started fire, but the fire brigade came immediately, was able to put it out. And so what happened, so we were all right. I mean, they were burning other temples too, not only our temple. So we were all right, basically. There's a little fire damage, but nothing too bad. And then one of the native chiefs had a dream, and Kaliya appeared to him in a dream, and he said that if you ever hurt my devotees again, I'll kill all of you. And so then within the next 2 or 3 years, those people who attacked the temple died. We didn't kill them. Nobody, one of them died in an automobile accident, another one died from just some disease like that. And just Krishna was just like, it was amazing, because they had attacked Kaliya. The temple, the Kaliya Krishna temple, which we have in a place called Lotoka, which is the first place where Prabhupada started a temple there. And Prabhupada started the temple in a very interesting way in Fiji. There was no Radha Krishna temple there. Half of Fiji, half of the people in Fiji come from India, and they were brought by the British as indentured servants. That means the British, I'm sure you all know what that is. The British would take people from India to work the sugarcane fields and tell them after about 7 years you could get out of working, but they charged them more money for their maintenance, so they never really got out of, they're called gearmits, right? Mm-hmm. Gearmits is the technical word for it. So anyway, so when Prabhupada didn't even go to Fiji in the beginning. He was just changing his plane in the international airport in Nandi, which is the main airport in Fiji. And so at that point, they didn't have direct flights between America and Australia. So people had to stop over, the planes had to stop over in Fiji. So Prabhupada was changing planes, and one of my godbrothers, Vasudev Prabhu, he heard that Prabhupada was in the airport, and he went into the lounge, the transit lounge, and he got permission to go in, because he was a very prominent businessman in the country. And he saw Prabhupada, bowed down, touched Prabhupada's feet, and Prabhupada said, "Is there any Radha Krishna temple here in Fiji?" And he said, "No, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, "Then build one." So based upon that one instruction from Srila Prabhupada, we have literally tens of thousands of devotees now in Fiji. I mean, we are just so big, so many devotees. In every city, we have Radha Krishna temples and Jagannath temples in so many different cities. And it's a country with only 800 to 900,000 people, right? And the amount of people from India are only like 400,000 to 500,000 at this point. You know, there are a lot of people migrated. And so, can you imagine with so few people, like, you know, think about Orlando. How many people live in the city of Orlando or the surrounding area? What's the population?
Few millions.
Few million?
Three.
You know, the whole area, probably 3 million or
Yeah,
something.
3 million.
Like 3 million in the area. You know, it's a major area in the United States. So, but in Fiji, where we have like 400 to 500,000, you know, people, we have, let's see, how many temples? We must have like temples and preachers. We must have about 9 or 10 or something like that. The Radha Krishna deities installed in Lambasa, which is another island. The Radha Krishna deities installed in Suva. Radha Krishna deities installed in Lotoka. 3 sets, and then Jagannath deities in different temples. So it's amazing, isn't it? Can you imagine if we had tens of thousands of devotees in Orlando? So, and that's based on Prabhupada's desire. So if we take up very seriously the desire of Prabhupada and the desires of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then amazing things can happen. And it certainly has happened in Fiji. I was just like, I mean, when I go places in Fiji, more people receive me at the airport than receive the Prime Minister. Seriously. You know, one time the one Prime Minister, not the President, not Bandaranath, was on the airplane with me, and more people received me than the Prime Minister. It was quite embarrassing for the movement. The Prime Minister was like, what the hell is going on here? And they introduced me to the Prime Minister. And I met the Prime Minister a number of times. You know, and in the country, the devotees hold prominent positions in the business field and also in the government. The head of the electrical department is a devotee. The heads of the road department or something like that. The infrastructure is a devotee. I mean, there's so many people who are devotees who are prominently posted in the country. It's an amazing country. And yeah, do I find I left? Too bad. So, any other questions? Yes.
Maharaj, you were saying a lot of personalities refuse to give the dust of their feet.
Yes.
You said because they believe they will.
Because they were afraid of what would happen. Yeah.
So, what was the reason? Like, if you
Well,
give the dust of
if you commit an offense, like if you commit an offense against the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you get a big reaction for it. I mean, just like, I mean, you know, the culture, like, for example, like even the caste culture, the caste consciousness, that if a Shudra would step on the shadow of a Brahmin, basically, sometimes there'd be a heavy reaction for it. What to speak of dust? You know, in India and in most polite countries, you don't hit someone with your shoes or throw the dust at your feet. I remember one time there was a president or someone from the United States went into some country and they threw a shoe at him. And that was considered the biggest insult. So the dust of one's feet, and you put that on the head of a respectable personality is considered an insult. Like Prabhupada said that even one shouldn't like move furniture by kicking it with one's feet. I'm not going to do that. That's part of the culture. And when we approach Krishna, we approach through his feet. We don't approach through the head. So it's considered a great offense to take the dust of your feet and put it on the head of some great personality. But to speak of the great personality like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's considered a very great offense. And for committing offenses, there's reactions according to the Vedic literatures. And one of the reactions is you go to H-E-double-L. And but the story is there to illustrate Radharani and the gopis' love, intense love for Krishna. That they're willing, even at their own expense or the expense of their own happiness, to give Krishna happiness. That's love. It's like the closest thing we find in this world is the mother's love for a child. Isn't it? Like the mother loves the child so much that she's willing to sacrifice her own happiness for the child. I'm sure that some of you have experienced that. You know, if it's hard with a mask. Anyway, so some of you have experienced that with your mothers or with your wives, how when there's the children there, it's just like, wow, that's it. They don't pay attention to anybody else, including the husband. So that's a small example, or a limited example, of what love of Krishna is in the spiritual world. That the devotees are so much focused on the pleasure of Krishna that there's no consideration of their own happiness. And their own happiness is the happiness of Krishna. So ultimately they are happy. It's not that they're just miserable and going to hell. Because when there's love there, like the mother, you know, the mother could be suffering and working so many jobs to support the child, but if she sees the child is doing well in school and is healthy, she's happy. She's callous to all the external circumstances that are going on if the child is doing well. That's really important to understand. If the child's doing well, the mother's, she's willing to go to hell for the child, in a very real sense. And so Prabhupada said that's the closest thing to pure love that one finds within this world. And you can understand love of Krishna from that particular example. All right, any other questions? Yes?
Is karma purely like a materialistic concept? You said that Krishna doesn't have karma, so does karma not exist in the spiritual world?
That's right.
Okay, but...
Well, the word karma is an interesting word. It literally means work, but in the context that we use it in, it means the result of work.
Oh.
Let's say action, you know, Newton's law of action and reaction. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. So it means that every time you do something in this world, you get a reaction for it. So that's the meaning I'm giving to the word karma in this particular instance. So in the spiritual world, there's no reaction. Let's say I'm very good and I help a lot of old ladies cross streets, you know, just whatever. Then in my next life, I'll be rewarded for that. You know, whatever that reward is, you know, maybe become rich, you know, there's different rewards you get for being good. You get to get beautiful, or handsome, or strong, or rich, or intelligent. These are all different rewards you get. Or if I was very mean, then I would be born or have to suffer in certain ways in the future. That's the law of karma. That's why we see sometimes that little children who apparently have done nothing wrong in this lifetime are suffering, whereas others are enjoying like anything. It's not simply accidental. It's due to what they did in some past life. That technically is called theodicy, the study of the justice of God. You know, why do bad things happen to apparently good people and good things happen to apparently bad people? Because we only see a small segment, or see them in a small segment of time, whereas they were existing before. The soul is eternal. And so we did certain things in the past and we have to get rewarded or punished for. And that's karma. But a devotee has no karma. Someone who chants Hare Krishna, and we talk about neck beads, you get some neck beads, you get rid of your karma too. You have neck beads on?
Yeah.
Not yet.
No, we want to give you to
to give to him. Oh wow, you got neck beads.
Two rounds at least.
These are 2 rounds.
Yeah. You don't have the stock.
How do you chant 2 rounds on these?
No, this one for the neck.
I know, I was making I know that, I was making a joke. I was making that as a joke, you know, 2 rounds. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Okay, so here, why don't you get your neck beads?
Oh,
And the Yamadutas will not get you. Here we go. Okay.
Anyone else have questions on that?
Anybody else have questions? Yes.
How can I remain steady in devotional service?
Just do whatever your parents say. No, I'm sorry. Your mother asked me to say that. So, that's a joke. I mean, it's joking. How can you remain steady? Just think of your goal, you know, why you're doing it, what your long-term goals in life are, what you want to achieve. It's like school, you know, how do you remain steady in studying in school unless you're thinking of why you're studying in school, what the purpose is, you know, what you hope to achieve by it. And if you think I can take some training to keep remembering like that, why you're doing what you're doing, and then ultimately you become steady, and then it takes time. Steadiness is actually one of the really high stages of devotional service. According to Rupa Goswami, Ado Shradata Sadhu Sangota Bhajana Kriya. In the beginning, one executes devotional service and works on getting rid of what's called anarthas, unwanted things in the heart. Unwanted things are things not related to Krishna, like lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, stuff like that, things that we don't want. And then, after some time, after anartha nivritti, one comes to the stage of nishta, which means steadiness. But then first one gets steadiness in devotional practices. And that means while you're chanting, while you're reading, while you're doing things for Krishna. And then the higher stage of steadiness is steadiness 24/7, when you're doing whatever you're doing throughout the whole day. As Krishna says, yat karosi yat asnasi yat shahoshi yadasi yat. So that's a higher stage, and it takes time. And I wouldn't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just do what you can do and be happy. You know, enjoy your youth while you're young. And add Krishna. That's all. Just add Krishna. Don't be heavy on yourself and say, you know, I'm supposed to be steady and stable. How old are you now?
14.
14. So just have a good time when you're young. You know, then enjoy Krishna consciousness. Don't push yourself too much. All right. So that's it. We take a little prasad now, or something. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Let's go offline.
Over here.